Good. I'm so blessed to do this. Wow. I'm always so grateful. Hello, everyone. Like a flipping landing strip. It's not letting up anytime soon. Totally okay with it. Hey. All right. Just right down to business. All right. All right. We don't need that up. We should be good. We're not playing. We should be good. Let's make sure everything's cozy over here. And good. 1 minute and 17 seconds. Oh, this is so nice. All right. This is the fun part. All right. This is being faithful. Lord, just give me the right words, the right heart this evening. It gets better. Okay. What do you guys want to know? You. 18, 17, 14, 13, 12. My mic was up. Oh, that's so funny. Well, there you go. Let's take this thing live. Ladies and gentlemen, you never know when you're going to have a live microphone in the studio. And that is so awesome. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a little orange tonight. The funny thing is this camera likes to go orange when I wear blue. So I have a little bit of color correction to be doing. But overall, it is a pleasure to see everybody, even if I do look like I've just come out of some crazy tanning salon. In any case, I love what I get a chance to do. That's so funny that, normally in the opening scene there, I have that mic muted, but it is such a privilege to be able to, to be able to do this, and just being faithful with what God puts in my hand the funny thing is that I'll read you into kind of the dialogue you witness, which is really kind of cool. I mean, the funny thing is that which is done in secret, ultimately comes out. And it's so funny, I'm looking down below on YouTube here, and there's a guy that has 454 people watching. And I'm like, you know what? And I look up and I'm like, you know what? I've got 6 people here and I've got 5 people on YouTube. And God was just like, you know what? You should really celebrate everybody that's here, which I do. And that's how I feel about it anyway. But it was like, it's so easy to look at numbers and go kind of like this. And I'm just like, well, this is what I get to do, right? And we have things that we get a chance to be faithful to. So with that said, I was really moved tonight to talk about gear and answer questions. Hello, I don't speak English. Andrés, ¿habla español, Andrés? ¿Cómo está? Bienvenidos. Habla un poquito de español, pero hablamos esta noche gear. ¿Cómo se dice equipo? ¿No? Entonces, Rick, great to see you. Andres, bienvenidos. Brett, hello, good to see you again. And Alan, what a pleasure. Okay, so here's the thing. Questions are welcomed. They're invited. I have a bunch of stuff that I want to talk about. There is a bunch of new gear that's on the market. Okay, hang on a second. Mr. Orange Guy has got to go. I got to do something about this. All right, so let's do a little bit of this. Let's do a little bit of that. There we go. Okay. So that's good. All right, so here's the thing. I've been spending a little bit of time with the Boss GT1000 core, and I have become radically enamored. So I'm actually just going to jump in to kind of one of the things that I'm feeling a call, which is a strange way to describe it, but to do more around gear, do more around playing, and a little bit less talking. But yet tonight it's going to have some talking. So I want to play a couple little pieces of audio using the new GT1000 core. They are not necessarily worship pieces, but it allows us to embark upon the conversation around this great little piece of gear. I'm actually going to pull up a photo of it that was actually from Doppler's Gear Garage last week, so you can actually see what this thing looks like. I think this is the right screen here. Come on, where the heck are you? Oh, what a moron. All right. No, hiding. Yes. There it is. So that is the GT1000 core. You can ignore the Doppler's Gear Garage logo up there, but that is a very cute little box. And what I love about it is, I am a fan of all things modeling pretty much, but I'm also a fan of getting the job done. And honestly, I don't care really how much money it takes. I don't care that, I'm not a pedal snoot. On, that aforementioned show last Wednesday, we had my buddy Jeff from Boss on there, and we're going to be doing a series of videos around building different types of rigs around the GT1000 core. Using it basically as your amp on your pedal board to go direct front of house, using it in combination with an actual amp and to split your signal to go off front of house, using it in combination with 4-cable method. So, the funny thing is that I think the great thing that a lot of people don't get is worship people know a lot about gear. But not everybody that kind of comes into the worship team environment, can work their way through a Fractal or a Kemper or a Helix or, GT1000. It doesn't matter what it is. Potentially coming in from just like, hey, I've had like 5 pedals. This is kind of what I know how to do. And, my goal with this thread here is to make sure that we all kind of take the journey together. And Rick, oh, that's awesome. Kind of what it is. And the interesting thing is I was having the conversation with myself earlier about kind of, well, how do I want to approach things tonight? And how do I approach using gear? I find that I have a tendency to reproduce the exact same rig, no matter what piece of gear I'm using. For me, that is almost always, if it's a worship thing, the amp is going to be an AC30. Ideally, I'm going to have 2 of them or some variation thereof. I'm going to be inclined to use a stereo delay. One side's going to be a dotted eighth. The other guy's going to be a quarter. On the dotted eighth, because it's a shorter delay, you add more repeats such that by the time the delays end, because a quarter note delay, if you have 3, imagine this is your quarter note and this is your dotted eighths. You have 3 quarter notes. That's going to end here. If you have 3 dotted eighths, it's going to end here. So what you need to do is add additional repeats on your dotted eighths to make that happen. And that sound is one of the big things of why I like playing in stereo. And again, I think we've talked a bunch about strategically about when you've got the guitars just going straight up the middle, they have a tendency to kind of be competing when you have the transient of the pick attack for the melody, the vocals. And so we want to, why I like going in stereo is kind of wrapping that. That said, I'm going to stop yapping, and hopefully I'm going to deliver maximum value for the investment of your time. Let's see how I do. Okay, I'm going to play this. This is one of my favorite little clips, and sorry, I've got to make a little introduction here because it's worth saying. It's an interesting thing. As for a long time, I believed, you don't need to spend more than $1,000 to get a great guitar, and I still believe that. But one of the things that has happened over the past couple of months is Fender has released this year. They've released some of the best guitars they've ever made, and what ended up happening is a bunch of these guitars showed up here, and I was just like, "All right, here we go." Generally, if you find a guitar that you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to live with that instrument, buy it. And somehow a bunch of them that happened with. So I'm going to stop that bit and just say, you know what, this particular guitar has a particular thing that it does, and this is that thing that it does. That guitar just owns me, seriously. The interesting thing about a unique instrument is that it will pull music out of you that you never would have played. And that is prefaced by the idea is that it's a really interesting conversation that Jeff from Boss and I have been having, because we're going to do a series of videos around, again, the GT1000 core. And the idea that, a lot of players just plug into any piece of gear and play the same thing. Then, let's say you've got a style, you want to just be able to get your style, which I totally get, but you can't just do AC/DC on a telly, with a twin reverb. It's just not quite the right thing. So you obviously want to change it up a little bit to reflect that. I think it's one of the things that I think gets people into trouble is they sometimes don't necessarily know they want to or should change gears. And better part of a decade ago, I decided I want to be a guy that can kind of plug into just about anything and not embarrass myself. More importantly, I want to find the gold. It's kind of like almost a ministry thing. I want to find the gold that's there. Ministry can sometimes be, like we talked about a little bit. People can sometimes be not easy to deal with, but there's gold in there. And once you kind of get past the stuff, you find the gold. So every amp has some sort of endearing quality for the most part. All right, I want to play another clip because this is going to give you some very good insight into kind of my world as a guitar player. And then I'm going to make sure I'm going to answer some questions here. So bring the questions on, please. Awesome. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. All right, here we go. And this is me channeling my inner Jeff Beck. That's me in my happy spot. Okay, digging into the questions. Brett, his comment, and he is on Facebook, which means unfortunately I can't pull that comment up into the stream because of how we're logged into Facebook. But what he has to say is this: I tried a Headrush 112 with my GT100, but it was extremely directional. It was extremely directional. I lost sound moving around 1 foot from the right in front of it. Sent it back. Are there any FR solutions that aren't so directional? Yes. It's not in frame, but the Tech 21 Deuce Deluxe, Power Engine Deuce Deluxe is awesome. And I did a video for that came out last week. And it is phenomenal. And if you give me a moment while I'm making sure I answer some other questions here, I will pull up that demo, but more importantly, I will find the spot where I'm kind of doing the worship tone thing. All right. Yes, yes, and yes. So it's a box about yay big. Got 3 bands of EQ. Oh, here we go. Plus or 12 dB of boost or cut on bass, middle, and treble. It's got XLR in. It's got XLR out. It's got 1/4 inch in. It's got aux in, 1/4 inch aux in. And what that's beneficial for, obviously, if you want to run your tracks through that, it's great. If you're a bass player or a double on bass, you can throw your drum machine into it. But because it's got some additional depth, when you use a 412 model or IR, it behaves much more like a 412 cabinet. But the XLR outs are so transparent with the sound coming out of the front of the unit and coming direct out of, I was using the Helix on that. I was absolutely floored. And it's loud as all get out. It's got a high pass and a low pass filter. It's got a horn that's defeatable. So basically you can fine tune it for electric guitar, acoustic electric guitar, or bass. And ironically, the original Tech 21 Power Engine 60 was pretty much where I got my start demoing gear. So that particular lineage of things, Tech 21 is a Sans amp. Chances are your church has a Sans amp back there with the bass player. It's the Bass Driver DI. It's awesome. It's basically, they were the ones that really kind of started the whole amp cab sim when, people then kind of came back to them and said, hey, we want to amplify this sound that you made. And that's kind of how that thing got started. As a matter of fact, let me just double check. There we go. Oh, excellent, Brett. Already looking at that. Good. Good. All right, let me see if I can pull that up without a huge amount of drama here. So I believe it's going to be somewhere right around here. Let me see if I can dig this up easily. Renders. Deuce Deluxe renders. There we go. Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to scrub the timeline here so you don't have to watch through the whole silly video here. All right, you metalhead, you. All right, so... And... All right. Oh, you know what? I'm going to let you hear some acoustic through this. This is lovely. Moving on. Let's take a listen. There are a couple of things happening there that I think you're going to want. All right, I managed not to blow up the internet. Thanks for that heads up about the volume levels there, David. That was a help, and I looked down. I'm like, oh, it's metering quite hot. So my apologies for that. I try and provide an equal volume experience here. Feedback is always welcomed and greatly appreciated. Hey, what's going on, Brenton? Good to see you, my man. So here's the thing. What I do not want to make this, Alan, I don't want to make this into a Doug Fest. What I want to do is make this into a Gear Fest. So, yeah, what was really neat is that was actually all those different, the acoustic guitar was coming out of the XLR out, and I was, the Deuce Deluxe, you need to use some sort of preamp or modular before it. It's not designed to function as a standalone preamp. It's designed as an amplified speaker system with EQ. And what's neat is when you come out of the XLR outputs, whether you go into the quarter-inch ins or the XLR ins, the EQ on the front does not affect what's coming out of the XLR outs, which is really cool. So it means you can adjust your volume level and any EQ for the stage environment, quote unquote, without freaking the sound tech out, which is huge. So that the last clip there, everything you heard, with the exception of the drums, of course, was mic'd up. And that was kind of the other thing I wanted to demonstrate was, and for myself too, was just like, you know what? The sound coming out of it was so synonymous with what was going directly into the DAW coming the XLR outs. And then to be able to mic that with those are the Roswell, well, they're not back there now, but they're around here somewhere. Roswell Pro Audio Mini K47s. It sounded so synonymous. I was like, this really works. So I have had great luck with that stuff, and I'm just super impressed with that. And that is a huge challenge. Chris Alexander, how you doing? Good to see you. That sounded great. How long does it take to build a track like that? That's a great question. You know what? First of all, I bring on any questions, especially whether it's gear, recording, tech. Just bring it. Digging in. Okay, so every so often you get stupid. And you just forget the things that you know. So what I'm going to do, because that is an open door that I'm going to answer. First of all, can anybody that's here that is, that's on here, that's got fingers free, that is hopefully not driving or something, let me know what kind of interest you have in recording, and or kind of what sort of stuff you're actively recording and or interested in being able to record. That would be a huge help. As I answer Chris's question, so there were three main things happening there. The PRS guitar, I was coming out of the dual outputs. One's a piezo and the other's a magnetic. Those were split to the two different power engines. They each had their own individual signal path. The kind of magnetic went into basically an AC30, a Tech 21 AC30 in a box thing out into their boost DLA out into one of the power engines. The other one, the piezo went out into the Storm pedal from Solo Dallas. That also had a little bit of a limiter in there, so it's kind of preamp limiter, and that in turn went out into my Eventide H9. And it took me a minute to remember how to properly mic cabinets because I've been spending so much time in the box and loving being in the box that I kind of forgot something. So, who was it that made that comment about the mics? Okay, Alan, sounds like a great miking job in the studio. First of all, thank you very much. Second of all, it's not rocket science. It's literally kind of the general MO. I'm looking for some sort of thing that I can use to fake. This will do. Let's imagine that this is kind of the center of your speaker, right? So this would be what's called the dust cap. And generally speaking, what I try and do is point the microphone right at the edge of the dust cap, generally about an inch or inch and a half away from the dust cap. And as you move further away from the center of the speaker, the mic tone gets bassier. As you get closer to it, it gets brighter. But as you draw the microphone closer to the speaker as well, you get what's called proximity effect. It's like when somebody comes and yells in your ear, you're like, holy cow, I could have heard you from over there, but it gets exponentially louder, and there's a bass buildup that happens. And as I was setting up the mic, I was like, oh, it's not bassy enough. Let me push the mic in further. And what I ended up doing was destroying the balance between the treble and the bass, where really what I needed to do was pull the microphone back to about there and move it a little bit from left to right. And that way you're capturing the sound of what's coming out of the speaker, which is implying that you got to kind of have your head down in front of the speaker to know what's actually happening there. Because another common mistake players make is they put a cabinet down at their feet and they're going, that doesn't sound like anything like the sound. And it's kind of like what Brett was talking about before, where the directionality, not just left and right, but from the ground up to your, here, if you're up here and your sound's down there, you're not hearing the transient attack. You're not hearing how bright it is. And I've made every mistake ever. And I remember being at a sound check at a venue in San Francisco, and it had a stage like this, and I happened to step down into the venue, and my cabinets were now at ear level. And I'm like, I thought I knew not to have the treble that loud, and I thought I knew what was coming out of the front of my cabinets, and I didn't. And so, you just sometimes relearn these lessons over and over, which is actually a really good thing. So the idea of knowing what it actually sounds like is that. So the point being, I spent a lot of time trying to find the balance of what that track was, and I did something that was quintessentially stupid. I recorded those guitar parts first instead of coming up with a basic drum track, because usually I'll kind of come up with a drum pattern, an easy drummer, and then layer the bass on it, and then add everything in layers on top of it. That's a logical, if you will, foundation for building your musical house. But I was kind of like, I was really missional about getting that sound out of the piezo and that, so I was so fixated on it, I kind of forgot a bunch of things that I knew. One, build the track from the ground up if you possibly can. And two, miking technique. And so I really, made it a simple job much harder than it needed to be. The bass part pretty much came into focus pretty well. I actually did a bi-amp thing with the bass there, which I really kind of enjoyed. It was kind of a different take on that for me. All right, let me go in and take a look at the comments here. Alan asking, do I use different preamps for each mic? I actually go straight into my Universal Audio Apollo 8. The mic pre's in that are great. Interestingly enough, I've got a UK Sound 1173, which is a combination of a Universal Audio 1176 compressor and a 1073 preamp. And I'm about to put it up on Reverb because I'm like, I don't use it. So I generally, as a gear demonstrator, quote unquote, the mission is to try and get everything to sound as close as it does in the room, so you don't feel like you're selling people short, right? Because that's really important. I want people to kind of hear what I'm hearing, and really be able to do that. There we go. Alan, good. Okay. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. It's an interesting thing. Somebody I was talking with in the past 2 weeks was saying very much that the grill cloth has a huge impact on the sound, so I'm going to be inclined to believe them. The difference being that, whether it's the microphone or your human ear, you're on the other side of that grill cloth. I think the biggest challenge comes in I think, the idea of like, well, I stick it on the edge of the dust cap and I put it this far away. Well, if there's different material on different cabinets and different speakers, it's not always like, just one and done. But generally speaking, that as a starting place, that works really well. And yes, apparently it does make a big difference, and it does affect what the microphone's going to hear. And if you kind of put your hand in front of your mouth and start talking, and then you start to open up your fingertips and you close them up, you begin to realize that whatever you put in front of that speaker is going to impact, even in the slightest way, what's kind of coming out of it. Great question. Okay, let's take a look here. Awesome, Brett. Great to hear that. Awesome. And the amp so the other thing, sorry. I'm going to get better about reading the questions as opposed to answering them without reading them. So Brett's comment is, thanks so much. That might just be my solution, a more guitar amp-like projection experience. The other thing that the Do Selection has got is ports on the back, which means it breathes out the back of the cabinet as well. And one of the things that they made a lot of investment of time on their R&D end is that, especially for the acoustic guitar, if you're going to use the high frequency driver, which is basically a tweeter, they really tried to make it so it wasn't directional. A traditional horn is really kind of like, if you're in the sweet spot, that's great. But if you're off axis, you really lose the effectiveness. They wanted to make that experience, and by having it ported in the back, that helps a lot. Okay, let's see here. Hey, Jared, what's going on? Thanks so much for all your info. Looking for a powerful and portable amplifier with clear sound. Any suggestions? All right, Jared, can you do me a favor? First of all, welcome aboard. Can you give me some more detail about the venue or venues you're going to be playing, what your pedal board is, where, if anywhere, you're getting your drive from, how much volume you're looking for? Give me as much specific information, but I can tell you an amp off the top of my head that I love is the Fender Deluxe, the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb. Those are great. As a matter of fact, hold on, where's my prop? Gosh darn it. Oh, I didn't bring it over. Fail. Okay, so the new blonde Tone Master Deluxe is here. The kind of the black face one is already here from before. They have done, Fender that is, has done a phenomenal job on those amplifiers, especially for the house of worship. Why it's so powerful is that it sounds just as good, in my opinion, as my 65 reissue Deluxe Reverb. It does not have tubes, which means that, you're not replacing tubes. I know the tube folks will be like, whatever. Okay. And I'm a tube guy, so don't get me wrong. But for some folks, it's a bitter pill to swallow. I get that. But it also has direct out. It's got your choice of, the old one has the choice of a 121 or 57. The new one's got a choice of a 121 or, a 57 and a 421. That is to say the kind of the perennial Shure SM57 and a Royer 121 on the black Tone Master Deluxe, which I believe is still available. And then the new blonde one has replaced the Royer with a Sennheiser 421. I actually prefer the 121. I think it is a slightly warmer sounding microphone, but that's just a personal preference. Now, the interesting thing is, now that I have both of them here, I'm basically going to be able to use the blonde for the 57 and the black face for the 121 and go direct in those. And basically, when you have the amp in standby, it bypasses the speakers. So you can use them in a silent stage. Your sound tech's going to love you. They sound amazing. They have lots of volume. They have also basically have, it's not technically power scaling, but you can scale down the virtual watts from, 26 watts or 24, some crazy, 22. I think a Deluxe Reverb is 22. But then you can scale it down to 6 watts, so you turn it up, and it's as if, that is to say, when you've got the volume going, it enables you to turn the amp up, but it's quieter, but you drive it a little bit hotter. Now, I personally prefer running Fender amps not super hot. I prefer to use some sort of drive pedal. I just find that for most instances, I prefer to drive into the front end of the amplifier with some sort of pedal, as opposed to using the amplifier power amp section in a Fender type of thing. That's just me, though. Awesome, Brent. Recording a church a cappella band tomorrow. How would you mic this? Oh, boy. Well, okay. All right. How do I do this? This is so funny because one of the things that I love sharing stories, but somebody once accused me of, it was something, what do they call it? Something bragging, humble bragging. I was like, ooh. And it sounded like a poke. And I asked my wife, what is a humble brag? And she was like, yeah, it's a poke. But I actually sang background vocals. It was more screamed background vocals on a Joe Satriani record. And it was at the Plant Studios. And it was on one of the things where we had some sort of a crowd chant. All right, I just want to rock. Of course, I remember because basically there was a whole group of people. And then they had a smaller group. I just want to rock. And I destroyed my voice that afternoon because, he said, somebody was like, hey, can somebody sing that a little bit higher? So, because you want this effect so that you would go through and record it like 5 or 10 times. And, everybody's kind of at different notes, so it sounds like 5 million people. But what John Cunenberry did was he had I forget the mic pattern when it's a 360-degree pattern, but everybody's in a circle around it. And the advantage of that is it enables you to get a blend. Now that said, if you do not have that benefit and you have some sort of, you know, okay, I am not great with this, but I will give you the best answers that I can. If you have a mic that is 360-degree uh, uh, pattern, I would have everybody stand in a circle around it. That would be the best possible way to grab that. The other thing that you might do is set up a pair of microphones in an environment that it's not a, you're going to end up getting some room in there. So that is to say, if you're in a room that has a fair amount of ambient sound, try having people sing into the microphone in different places in the room, and just try and see if there's a spot in the room that sounds better. Generally speaking, you're going to get, as you know, Brenton, you're going to get bass buildup in the corners. I have a little recording lesson for everybody, and I'm glad I get to share it with you guys. My little hotel room trick when I've got my iPhone, and this is the ultimate example of what you learn about the directionality of sound and bass buildup. Take your iPhone, pull up iTunes or whatever you listen to, and put it in the corner the next time you're in the shower, like up on the counter of your bathroom, and have it playing, and then put it in the corner and listen to the way it amplifies the sound in the room. You'll understand what setting up your studio in the corner of the room actually does to hype certain frequencies and propel sound in directions that is not going to help you with the mix, because what happens is you excite the listening environment. Ideally, you put your studio monitors in a place where they're far enough away from the walls that you don't get this buildup, especially being in the corner, because in the corner you're going to get a bass buildup as well. But try that thing and you'll freak out if you haven't done it before. That's what I always do in a hotel room. When I want to get in the shower and have some music blaring, find some little corner in the bathroom, put it in there, and it literally makes it 3 times louder. But it also reveals kind of like how much of a problem that can be. So you might try moving stuff around, and maybe just a pair of mics that you can get some distance between them. Ideally, choir mics would be a way to go. I've recorded a trio of singers using they are choir mics from I'll get the name of it in a moment. Hang on. Hang on. Choir mic. No. There we go. Audix. But they're not cheap. But the idea is that they're specifically designed to have some distance between the group, and so you can get the blend and capture the blend. And do that in stereo. And I did that with a choir, both in live on a Sunday, and then also capturing a trio of vocalists. And those worked really well. The other thing that's neat about those particular microphones, they come on these fancy pants stands, so you can actually control the direction that you're trying to get. So that is to say, this room has been treated here, but let's say this room wasn't treated here. Sound comes up and reflects back down. So let's just say I had a microphone pointed at the ceiling. There's a sound source there that's yelling at the ceiling. Just like pool, it's going to bank off the ceiling. So sometimes it's a matter of trying to go, how can I find a good level of directionality? Does it make more sense to come up at the vocalist? Does it make more sense to come straight at them? Or does it make more sense to come down? If you take a look at your average church that has a choir, more often than not, you'll see choir mics suspended from the ceiling. Now, I think that's for sightline more than anything. But the idea is just to try it and see what gets the best results, and trying to find the right location in the room, and then also trying to find the right blend. Does it work to have, the people, here's the thing, is that the vocalist, you want them comfortable. So if you find that the best spot is in the closet, that may not make for a great vocal performance, right? But the idea is you want them to kind of be in a place where they're located. The other thing is, you may or may not want to experiment with having them all on phones or not on phones. If there's any kind of a click track, you need to have them in phones. The thing about vocalists is a vocal blend. This is one of my, it's a little bit of a gripe about vocalists who spend all their time with in-ear monitors, is they generally don't develop the blending skills that vocalists who sit in a traditional choir environment where they gather around the piano, they do a little vocal warm up, and everybody is listening to everyone else. And the point of that is about a blend. And so the thing is that that's actually another idea, is have them sing in a group, kind of move around the room and see where they sound best as a group. It's a funny thing, but having one instrument over here and one instrument over there, but when you blend them together, that may not be the best placement for that stuff when it's actually in the room. So seeing if there's a comfortable place. Obviously, you want to make it convenient to set stuff up such that people aren't tripping over cables and destroying your gear in the process of that. Let me know how it goes. I hope I've been more of a help than a hindrance there. Okay, so there we go. I saw something about the effects loop. I'm also going to talk about another, because I think we were talking about combos there for a minute, but I'm going to also talk about my other favorite worship amp, which is the Rev D20. And I actually think that is the single, and because the question was about a clean, oh, there we go. Hang on. Let me just read Jer's comment. Thank you for your response. I'm looking for a solution to amplify the sound of our guitars and bass to play in the field so there's no electrical energy. So someone told me, but a Vox amplifier works with batteries like AA. Bought it, but it sounds so bad that I'm desperate to find a solution. Okay, a couple of things. When you say in the field, I take it you mean just outside. Yeah, you know what? The Roland. Hang on. Roland Cube Street EX. There we go. Hang on a second. There we go. Let me jump over here. Load, baby, load. There we go. Hang on a second. Let's get over to said browser. There we go. So there it is. I've the funny thing is I was at a venue with a guitar player that had one of those, and it was plenty loud. It was too loud. There was a little bit of an episode that occurred because I kept asking him to turn down. But I've got a buddy, Tim Moon, that uses one of those out on the street, and I think those are really good. Obviously, being battery powered does reduce your options. Yes. Okay. First of all, you said guitars and bass. Do you mean acoustic electric guitars or do you mean electric guitars? Because obviously, for something like that, the neat thing is you can run it as basically a pedal platform and then use battery-powered pedals, so you're covered there. The other thing is, it's not in this room, but the Fishman Loudbox Mini... Hold on. Fishman... Where did I learn all this stuff? Holy cow. All right, let me find the model here. Come on, load. Computer. Angry at me because I'm streaming and surfing the web simultaneously. Come on. There we go. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, so this is the... Boy. Be that way. There we go. All right, this is... And these are great. So we've got the Fishman Loudbox Mini Charge. And what's neat about that is you can see that there's an XLR input for a microphone. So there's a channel for the mic. I would be gently cautious about the bass, but, in that aforementioned situation I was talking about before, I'm a big fan of using, when you don't, have the ability to haul a bunch of amps around, acoustic electric guitars and basses, you plug in a traditional electric bass into one of those. I don't necessarily know how happy it's going to be, but an acoustic electric bass, those are really a lot of fun to play. And you can really, what's neat about it is you can still kind of rock out worship. And then it comes down to the acoustic electric guitar, acoustic electric bass, and a cajon. Like, in case you didn't see the stupid, animation face, I love cajones. I think cajones are the coolest thing ever. because they have this amazingly organic sound. They have all the great vibe of a drum kit. You don't necessarily need a mic to hear them, and they're totally portable. And they make for this great intimate drum-like sound anywhere. I love a cajon. Love a cajon. I digress. Uh, all right, hang on just 1 second. Let me make sure I've gone through this thing, and then we can talk about the Gem Woody that my buddy Rick is thinking about getting. All right, Larry. Yes, thank you. Absolutely, the Onyx. Brenton. Oh, there we go. Jeremy, Roller Street Crew. It's pretty sweet, but needs a little bit more than AA batteries. So here's the thing is that the battery life thing is something you want to be conscious of. Here is my go-to resource when I want to know anything about gear. This in the upper left-hand corner. See those stars? Let's see if I can navigate here without breaking the internet. First of all, I look at the number of stars and the number of reviews, and then this is my go-to resource. I want to see who it is, and I want to see what they had to say. And the great thing that Sweetwater has managed to get people to do is they get great engagement from people who are actually using this, and you get a chance to hear, there we go, best battery amp. That's exactly what we're looking for, right? So, there we go, and the battery lasted a very long time. And then not to mention, you can connect your phone via Bluetooth, go ahead and busk it, great sound in a small package, so on and so forth. So then invariably, you're gonna see somebody that is kind of not liking as much, and those are often, how do I say this? You're gonna find somebody that happened to be the poor person that got the one that somehow got dropped by, I don't know, FedEx, UPS and delivery, or was defective and somehow they didn't catch it. That does happen. I found Fishman's quality control to be excellent, but let's face it, gear fails. Everybody's had a TV set that eventually one day they turn it on like nothing, right? A computer, whatever it is. But I found that the Fishman stuff is really good. And the battery thing, I would go on to Sweetwater and look at who's using it, looking at how they're using it, and then compare and contrast. But that is a resource, for worship musician. Pretty much any time I review a piece of gear, that is the first thing that I do, because I want to go, who's buying it, who's loving it, how are they using it, and what problems are they encountering? So I don't go, oh, this is amazing, and then all of a sudden, like 5 people are like, you're an imbecile. It doesn't do this well at all. Because I don't want my opinion to be swayed by the court of public opinion, but at the same time, I also want to be able to go, well, what do other people think? Because that allows me to go, is what I'm thinking right, or am I just kind of like I just was excited about playing that morning, and I think whatever it is that came out that I was so excited about, I painted that onto a piece of gear, which happens because I'm a kind of enthusiastic guy. Believe it or not, especially when I'm talking about gear. Onyx, yes. You really need to clear your search history, Gear Whisperer. What was on there? I know there's not any porn, thank God. Holy cow, what came up? All right, so in any case, maybe he met with my wife, just like, he's looking at gear again. Doppler's at it again. JR, with pleasure. Thank you for your help. I'll look for it right now. You're the best. Ditto. This is us having fun. We're having a gear hang. Come on. Holy cow. All right, let's take a look at what's going on. Rick, the Gem Woody is a great guitar. I love that guitar. I love it. You can actually kind of, unlike, like a Marshall's, I still haven't got my left and right. I have a feeling this is a typo. This is when you're like, I know he wrote Onyx and wrote audio. So the Onyx stuff is great, and their choir mics are phenomenal. They are really, and they also make them in white, so they're basically transparent because we do this thing called streaming, and if you can see it, you can see it. Awesome. All right, so I started to talk a little bit. Oh, hold on. Rick's got another question about recording. Where is that? I need to get a great tone direct into a camera. Is that possible? I can only record with headphones in my apartment. Could I plug a Line 6 pod directly into a Zoom Q2N 4K and get a sweet tone? Well, that's a very interesting question. This is, you mean one of these? Oh boy, I've got a gear problem. Let's see. The answer should be yes. I don't know for a fact, but I see a ton of Orify. And so the other thing is, let me grab, seemed like a great idea at the time. Let me grab these guys. I'm so glad you asked about Zoom. Let me back out of frame. I apologize, I'm backing slightly out of frame. Let's see if I can do this without wreaking too much havoc. There we go. So, speaking of Zoom, it's like Santa Doug or something. No, I'm not giving away. I guess that would be Santa Doug. But Zoom has these great audio interfaces that we're going to have a review in not this current issue of WM that's about to come out, but the one afterwards. And I interviewed the guy that's a product specialist for these. But this sub $200 audio interface that basically the hack that the Zoom guy was talking about was there is a 1/4-inch mini out. Where the heck is that puppy? Well, I know where to find it on the smaller version. Give me just a second. So specifically, these Zoom... well, hang on a second. Why are you not happy with what you're getting on... Because you wanted to use a mic, but you should have mic inputs on your Q2. So, all right, right there, the little green dealio right there. So basically what this is a one-channel, it's a combination of an audio interface, got USB, it's got basically a combi jack, which in case you don't know what that is, that's an XLR and 1/4-inch, so you can run your guitar and or a microphone into it, and yes, it does have phantom power. And this one's like $120, and this one's like $160. This one may be a little bit less, but this guy, for the money, is just got every possible feature. So, I mean, it's kind of like you've got your RCA in and out, you've got 1/4-inch in and out, you've got dual mic pre's, you've got your combi jacks up here, you have MIDI, like native MIDI, not even USB MIDI, you have USB. There's actually 2 different USB cables, such that if you're running into your iPad, you can still kind of power this thing. It actually will bus power. And if you don't know what bus power is, basically there are certain types of USB devices that will power from the power of your computer via a USB cable. It does take AA batteries, 2 of them. And I am a huge fan of the Zoom stuff. I have honestly, I'm going to be totally honest, I've been not super happy with this camera. Just going to say it. I bought it so I could stream with it, and I've been having a problem with them freezing. It's the only Zoom product, and I got to be honest, that I haven't been super happy with. Everything else, and I mean everything else. I don't see the other recorder out here, but it's been great. So to answer your question, having some sort of... Hang on, let me take a look at the camera here. Yeah, you should have the ability to... There's your 1/4-inch in. So let me answer the broader question intelligently, hopefully. The challenge is, as we're going to shoot / capture content on video, how do we not have to go through major drama in post getting our audio synced to our video? That's really kind of like the underlying $1,000,000 question. And so one of the advantages is marrying that to the video source at the point of capture, which makes a lot of sense. So that's exactly what the guy at Zoom was talking about doing, is you come out of this guy straight into your camera. Just about every camera's got an 1/8-inch stereo mini in because of these stereo uh, microphones that, in particular, the Australian company. Gosh, me and name Rode. They make a bunch of stereo video mics and whatnot. And so the point being is being able to grab that audio and marry it to that. And that same thing holds true for, say, for example, you're doing something with streaming. And in theory, if you've got one camera and you can find a good microphone like a shotgun, and then, say you don't have an audio interface, right? You're just like, I'm making do with what I'm making do, kind of like what you're talking about. I've got a shotgun microphone here. Those require fan and power. You basically take the shot. Well, let's say this is a slightly better solution for that. The shotgun goes in so I can have my talking audio. My guitar goes in. I can use a Helix or Podgo or Pod or whatever it is into here, and then I can mix that, and then I send that stereo image out to the camera. And let's say I'm going to do some editing in post, regardless of what it's in. Then what you do is you kind of like you shoot. Ideally, you shoot all your talking segments. You write a script. You go, all right, I'm breaking it down. Here's my intro. Here's, the second segment. Here's my third segment. Here's my close. Boom. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah. And then you cut all the audio segments together. Listen to them. The mistake that I make over and over is sometimes I don't go back and review and make sure, like maybe I'm like sideways in the frame, or, the color shirt I'm wearing is made the colors go weird. But the point being is that reviewing stuff allows you to make sure that when you, especially if you batch those things together and then go to do your guitar performances, when you go back to stitch those things together, you don't go, oh, I've moved something in the room. It's a different time of day. If you're using natural light, you don't kind of go, now I have this piece that I had to replace that doesn't match the other thing, and the cadence isn't the same, and maybe my hair is different, and I don't know, all the stuff that happens. So the advantage of marrying it to the video is that also if you're going to stream, that allows you to bring it in via HDMI into your, HDMI out of your camera into a capture card. Do I have one on the desk? No. Yes, I do. Hang on. I know it's here. There we go. Into a capture card, right? So, literally there it is. So there's the HDMI out into the USB 3. Ideally, if you can use USB 3, that's better because it's got a faster transfer rate. The other thing is that you can look inside your Mac. Am I really going to go there? Sure. I'm going to believe that many of us are Mac users, and let's see if I can get in here. Yes, let me see if I can find this easily and get there. And let's see if I can access this window so you can see what I'm talking about. But somebody out there will appreciate this. So what I'm doing is, there we go. All right, so this, let's see if I can target this from this window. There we go. That's exactly what we're looking for. So what you're looking at right now, let me see if I can I scroll that down? There we go. You're looking at the profile of the USB trees inside my computer. All right, why does that matter? Oh, stop that. There we go. Oh, behave. Because you can see that I actually have multiple USB trees. And so you can see which tree different things are on. And so the point being is that you first of all, you can also see that all of my, I've got, interesting thing, I've got a USB 3.0 bus. I got two of them. And then I have three USB 3.1 buses. The point being is that you want to make sure that if you happen to have like mixed buses, like a USB 2.0 and 3.0, which I think some computers have, you want to make sure you get your card into the fastest port. Now, just because it's blue does not guarantee that it is USB 3. But generally speaking, when you start seeing the blue guts, it hints that you've got a USB 3 cable. And the connection point, this is the cable that came with this little device that claims it's USB 3.0. I have a number of different cards, but the cable, a USB, the other termination on a USB 3 cable is different than a traditional one like you'd plug into your Helix. And I don't know the name of that termination point, but it's different. Sorry to digress there, but if you're having bus issues, or you're kind of finding that stuff, you've got different USB ports that you're trying to make the most of them, that tree information will be hugely valuable for you. It also lets you know that if you're using hubs and whatnot, how you can kind of make the most of just like, does it make sense? You can just test your performance, and by placing things in different places, see what works the best. Is guess what I'm trying to say. All right, let's see here. All right, hang on a second. All right, uh-oh. All right, with pleasure, Jeremy. Look at this. This is so cool. Brett is saying, I'm having a really hard time getting modelers to get a good heavy hard rock tones and high gain lead tones a la Satchas stuff. I want to get an amp instead, just for that purpose. Problem is, they're loud for home use and generally bigger than what I need, but have the features that I want. There we go. Let's see. Oh my word, this is fun and funny simultaneously. So there are a number of different devices, be it the Waza tube amp expander or the captor. So this is the 16 ohm one that just came out from Two Notes. There's also an 8 ohm version, but basically allows you to put a reactive load on your amplifier and place it into your DAW. I believe it has, yeah. So it's also got a built-in power amp. So what it means that you can basically get your amp to the sweet spot without, here. All right, let's back up one step. There is a whole world of folks that think that reactive load boxes are not particularly good for your amplifier. And so say you've got some sort of non-master volume vintage Marshall Plexi like that right there, cranking that thing up without running it into an actual speaker cabinet, the amp purist would probably, actually I was hanging out with my amp guy on Sunday and he was like, I wouldn't use it. But a number of these devices actually allow you to kind of take a tap off the speaker output, but also run a speaker while you're doing that. So if you can, maybe putting a cabinet in a closet, or just don't run your amp at 10. So, we're talking about, I don't know, like the JVM 410JH there. That is a phenomenal sounding amplifier. It's designed to have amazing distorted tones at reasonable volumes. I also didn't finish talking about the Rev G D20, which is their lower gain amp. In terms of the out of the box, just kind of like best worship amp on the planet. That's my favorite amp right now, because in particular there is a push-pull function on the gain control that when you pull it out, adds all this jangle that is just a sound that you're just like, and it has the ability to run at 4 or 20 watts, and the ability to include the power amp or exclude the power amp when you're running out of the included Two Notes torpedo technology that's embedded when you run out into your DAW or into your PA. So what that means is you can, at 4 watts, run the amp into the headroom much sooner. At 20 watts, you have more headroom to work with. So it means that in combination with the gain control and the amount of drive you're using, you can control the amount of preamp distortion and power amp overdrive. And we're going to be making a video about that. The blend of those things is really the ability to manipulate that is a big deal, and it allows you to have a huge number of gradations in flavor. So there's going to be a video about that in the next 7 to 14 days at the most. And I'm super excited about that because I love those amps, and that will be specifically a worship, not exclusively worship flavor, but it will be a worship non-exclusionary thing. All right, let's see here. Yep. Yes. Thank you, Alan. USB 3 usually has the SS logo. Thank you. PV Classic 20MH. There we go. Thank you for that. Speaker and MSDI. What is an MSDI out? Hold on. Hold on. MSDI out. That's on. Rick, I saw something about having another question. So if there is one, um, put that through. Not any editing software. So yeah, okay. So the idea, Podgo. So just try and get the balance. Like I said, something like this. Again, I'm an expensive friend to have, but what's neat about this allows you to really get your input and your output levels really tight going into your camera, and then they're married, as you pointed out, inside your camera, so you don't need to do any editing. Oh, there we go. We have back to the acapella thing. We have an acapella group called Rescue. That's awesome. We use individual mics and in-ears so they can get the effect of the circle without proximity. In this time, it would make sense. That it certainly would. Oh, that was very nicely put, Dean. Thank you for the wake-up call. I'm an idiot. Sorry, I get so excited about. I love. I grew up as a kid when I was 9. I joined a choir, and that's really where I learned a lot about. I learned everything in my early years about ear training. So scale singing was something I was doing when I was 10, and ear training, comparing 1, 2, 3, and this is a half step below, so this is one, a major third, this is a minor third. I was doing that thanks to that group when I was 10. So I kind of get in that mode. I kind of forgot. It's like, yeah, this COVID thing, you probably don't want people standing right next to each other getting a blend. Thank you, Dean. That was very succinctly put. Duh. Okay. All right. Chris Alexander. When using a looper, should the looped playback be routed to a different amp? I'm wondering if a speaker that is trying to handle the live playing and playback can give the artist the best sound. You are 100% correct. If possible, isolating your direct sound, especially if you're using distortion and delay and cavernous reverb and wah-wah and all that stuff we so love, given the moment to actually jump into solo mode, having a separate amp to do that is ideal. So yes, yes, and yes. Now the interesting thing is that these are the new Boss RC5, and what is this, an RC500? And so I'm really excited about using these because one of the challenges that I've got, and right now in a moment you're going to hear me stop talking even though my mouth, because I've got this great little foot switch that's down there. It does have a little bit of a click to it, but I can control it with my feet. So say, for example, I want to do a talk and play thing, I can control that with my feet. One of the things I'm excited about these loopers, and I've done I've used loopers at church, because not every church is in a position to have somebody that's going to work with a computer. But what you can do is at home, you can basically set up your loops. You can organize them into sections. I believe, I know for sure the RC500 allows you to set up a song in a couple of different sections. And I think the RC5 allows you to kind of have an A and a B part. I'll need to do a little bit more research on that. But I had the RC50 and I still have the RC300. And what that enables you to do is basically set up the intro section of the song that you can kind of keep looping that either at the beginning of the song, or maybe you go back to kind of a breakdown where you come back to the section, and then you can trigger different sections of the song. So say, for example, you had a verse, chorus, and a bridge, and the verse figure you're just going to use as your intro. Well, with the RC300, you could set up 3 sections for each song, and basically you just push a button, and when it kind of gets to the end of, you can either have it switch immediately, or when it gets to the end of the sequence, basically it'll switch to the next section. And so when you push a button, that is. So it means that you can kind of mess with your arrangement live. But the other thing is as you're kind of playing here operating Pro Tools, especially when you're streaming or any type of DAW, you don't want to be doing it. Now, I actually have 3 computers here. But the thing is that by the time I'm shooting video, running audio there, bringing it in via HDMI to there's a sync issue. And ideally, you don't want to be running Pro Tools if you can possibly do it on your streaming machine. It's and I've done it, and the last couple of times I got away with it, but one of the times before then it got angry with me, and I use the phrase figuratively. The streaming gods, like they are, and again I realize there's only one God, but I speak figuratively, so work with me. They are not nice gods. They are the gods that want to see you crash on the rocks slowly as the ship sinks. You see the sharks circling. They're about to have little bites of you as you descend into the waves. You'll never make it to that shore. The streaming gods are not kind gods. Just not. Figuratively, of course. So the point being is do not test the streaming world when and where possible, especially, on something like a Sunday morning. The point being, the loop-based track solution is great because you can actually create a mix. You can do a test recording. You can do a test stream to a private stream or whatever. You can test how the audio sounds and get your levels right, and boom, you're good to go. What's neat is I use an application called Ecamm Live, and Ecamm Live makes it easy for me to actually, I'm in stream mode, but there's also a recording mode, and I learned this from the Ecamm guys. They're like, well, just record it and test your levels. I'm like, oh, yeah. So that works really well. Great stuff. Okay. I'm gonna oh, that's hilarious. Okay, a microphone simulated direct interface, MSDI. Yes, more MSDI, please. Okay, that's so funny. Okay, oh, here we go. All right, Tim. Hey, and I realize I'm jumping through a couple of things, but give me a moment because I'm going to field this question. And first of all, Tim, it's always a little awkward to come into the room and be like, I may know less than a bunch of the people in the room, but actually just go, I've got a question. I love that. So lots of love here. Well, if you're looking for questions, I'm not real experienced with gear. For worship, I use a Line 6 Pod HD 400. Awesome. With a pretty cheap Fender Champion 20 amp that we mic, I can't remember the model, into the system. To my ear, the sound does not sound full coming into the board. Is that just inherent with what I have? If so, do I have any suggestions? I do. First of all, I used an HD 500, which is basically what the HD 400 is, with a little less firing power for years and years and years. So, arguably, now this is an interesting question. I think this gets back to Brett's comment. Fender Champion. I'm fairly sure that amp will not have an effects loop. And this is kind of one of the things, is that a classic, Fender amplifier, they're not really designed to have an effects loop. Now that said, the Hot Rod Deluxe, which has been redesigned, yeah, I'm looking at the back of the Champion 20. And you know what? I'm actually going to use a moment here. I'm going to, hang on a second. All right, let's do this. There we go. All right, let me zoom out. There we go. All right, so you're looking at the back of this amplifier. What I'm looking for is something that looks a little bit more like this. There we go. Anytime. There we go. So the great thing about the Hot Rod Deluxe 4, first of all, look at that right there. That's what I'm talking about. 28 5-star reviews immediately. Like, okay, you have my attention. So on the back of this puppy right here, you will see. Oh no, it's on the top. My bad. Sorry. What a moron. Okay, you're going to see the inputs here, and then you're going to see the send and return for the effects loop. So with a Helix, you would be inclined to do one of a couple of different setups. And my guess is you've read about this 4CM. It's kind of like whatever that acronym MSDI. It's like, so I mean, there are things that we're all learning always, and that's kind of the fun part about this. So the thing about an effects loop is it basically takes the preamp tone generation part of the amplifier and gives you the ability to send that out to a delay or a reverb, for example, and then bring that back out into the power amp section where it's amplified. So this 4-cable method thing that you probably heard about is you basically plug into your HD400. I believe, I'm 99% positive that has an effects loop on it. So you send the output of your effect send to the input of the, in this case, a Hot Rod Deluxe. You take the preamp out of the effects loop of the Hot Rod Deluxe. You run that into the effects return of the HD400, and then you take the output of the HD400 and you bring that into the power amp in, which is basically the effects loop has a place where it sends out to the effect and a place where it comes back in. You're bringing that back in, and now what you've basically done is enable it so you can run your stomp type boxes on the front in your HD500 into the front end of the amplifier. Then you're coming back out of the power amps, out of the preamp section, capturing the tone, running that back into your time-based effects, and then running back out in the amplifier. You do the same thing with the D20, and what that enables you to do is basically use, whether it's a Pod 400, HD 400, or a Helix, you're using the stomps, virtual stomps into the front end of the amplifier. Then you're able to potentially also use any channel switching on the amplifier there, because a lot of these boxes have some sort of channel switching functionality for controlling the two different channels on your amp, or if there's kind of like, like the Hot Rod Deluxe doesn't classically have two channels. It has the ability to bring in an additional drive control. So it's 2-channel-esque, but that's foot switchable. Your Line 6 unit can control that. So then you're able to manipulate the sound there. So that works really, really well. And so then the challenge, though, is you're now with this amplifier, and then getting that, miking that well, knowing that your sound team knows how to mix that well, because we deal with a volunteer sound team a lot. That's where some of the additional challenges come. So we want to be, this is one of the reasons that going direct with your HD400 might be a great solution, in which case maybe, I don't know whether you're running in, you're going to be running in mono because you're coming out into the one amplifier. You might actually just kind of run dual mono, where one output goes to the monitor, or for that amp for just a little bit of monitoring, and the other goes into the PA. That way you're able to have a little bit of stage volume so the guitar hears itself and you can hear yourself if you're not on in-ears. And you're able to kind of keep the overall volume low, and you're able to use the direct sound to go front of house. In which case I would use, I would run the amp as clean as is possible. I would use some amp and probably even some speaker modeling, but just keeping the amp as flat as you can, so it's really just kind of acting like a powered speaker. And if you're using just that amp alone and kind of coming out of the HD400, I'm 99% positive you can select either a preamp model as opposed to a full amp model. I know for a fact you can do that in Helix, but what that's for is basically going, hey, I'm going to treat that amplifier like a power amp, especially if you are using something like the aforementioned Hot Rod Deluxe. One of the things you can do is take a preamp, like an AC30 preamp, and just run everything into the power amp in on that Hot Rod Deluxe. So you're bypassing all the tone generation part, just using that for power. There's only one caveat, which is that some amplifiers, when you go into the power amp in, you're bypassing all the volume controls, which means when you plug in, you will be on 10. So just be forewarned. All right, Alan, what you got for us here? I run Podgo into the return of a tube amp for not at church jams. I have a Nux. How do you like the Nux? Cerebus with a drive up front and an Echo Park out back, so I can run either way, front end or at the amp return. There we go. So, and what do you expect? So, oh wait, hold on. There we go. Awesome. Yes. So, and there's a possibility that some of this is going to be um, Greek-esque. And so, one of the things that, as we're doing this little GT Core series, a GT 1000 Core series, is that we're aware that there are people that are, especially because I'm doing it with a guy that's basically the U.S. product manager for Boss. We're both aware, and I already spoke about the fact, it's like, look, you know what? We don't want to scare off people that have come from a stomp box background. So let's say, the HC400 is actually a very sophisticated piece of gear. My guess is the first time you looked at that and actually turned it on, you kind of went, oh, snap, there's a lot going on here. Once you understand it's basically just a virtual pedal board and amp setup, and you can change presets and change rigs with a push of a button, that's a big deal. But initially, it can be a little daunting. Same thing, when you're just using some sort of multi-effects device with amp modeling and speaker sims and IRs and all that stuff. If you're just used to using stomp boxes, there is a lot to kind of go, oh snap. So the idea is we're going to just try and make sure that we bring as many people along with us for that journey as we possibly can, because we know there are people that are wanting to start using this technology. They're kind of like, I think the technology is good enough that I can do it, but have used Stomp for so long, that's just how they're used to seeing things. So the reality is these are just basically virtual rigs that live in a box. But it still takes a little bit of time getting used to them. But we all use computers these days, so it's actually relatively straightforward. Great stuff. Okay, let's see here. Correct mouse. Okay, so get back to Brett's comment here because I don't think I totally finished that out. I'm having a really hard time getting monitors getting good heavy hard rock tones and high gain at Alasach-esque. Get an amp. Yeah, right. So the reactive load boxes are great. I'm going to pull up a clip here. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the right one. And I'll warn you guys, I'm going to go a little metal on you, so I apologize in so doing. But you're going to hear how metal this little guy can actually go. Heavy 4? No, that's not the right place. I want to be over here. My apologies. Give me just a moment. Demos assets. There we go. Video renders. There we go. All right, this is going to be metal, so... And I'll try and watch the output level as well, because that's probably going to need to come down. Here we go. Oh, I get to have way too much fun. So that is the GT 1000 Core, and that's a pretty metal tone. So, I think one of the things that people have been saying for a while is that getting great metal tones inside the box. Striper, hold on. Where's the right mouse? Holy cow, there we go. Look at that. Woohoo! I probably shouldn't do that. Sorry, that was instinct. Sorry. All right, I digress. There we go. It's so much fun. All right, let's see here. Okay, reading Jer's comment here. Talking about a solution among all, our bass player talks about a 60-watt amplifier from AIM that can work with a solar panel. Do you know them? Do you know if they exist? Is the amplifier amplification real 60 watts solar panel? Sounds crazy. Yes, I know them. The guy is a genius. I've got that stuff upstairs as a demo coming. And the other thing is now the next thing, I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, it's 60 watts. I totally spaced. What? Not only that, you can power it off of like your cell phone charger thing. Yes, I do know they are great. Totally gonna forget his first name. Lovely guy from the Pacific Northwest. We've got a demo coming on that as well. And there's this little. It's a 60-watt amplifier. The AIM A.I.M, and I forget what that stands for, but it's nuts and it's crazy loud. Yes, yes, and yes. And again, the new trend that you're seeing. Also, you'll see that from the folks at. Oh my word, me and names. The expression pedal people. Um, uh, Gone. All right. In any case, that also make the power stuff. Oh gosh, it's over there. Mission. Thank you. Um, they also are making basically, the thing that you the batteries, and I forget the MAH or whatever they're called, but the sort of battery that you use to charge your cell phone. They're making a power supply that runs off of that, which is pretty darn exciting. We're seeing some very cool stuff. That's so funny. Yes, I love it. Thank you, Jared. That's great. Okay, so here is the thing. I'm going to be making these shows a little bit shorter. So we got about another 8 minutes before I actually take a dinner break, and I've got some work that I need to do. So I would love it if you guys would, share some ideas of kind of stuff that you'd like to see us covering on the show. I don't care, within reason, what those things might be. But the thing is that giving people what it is that they want is probably a really, really good idea. Oh. No. That's so funny. Well, so input and feedback is always welcome. Your audio track or there on the video was too hot. If I don't know, I don't know. So here's the thing: is obviously the nerve stuff. What I am thinking is this. It is called the Worship Guitar Show. So in theory, I am increasingly thinking about guitars and gaming. I just saw that. That's great, Weston. I am increasingly thinking that I want to be covering more gear here. And the interesting thing is you guys had a great call-out list of gear. And what's been happening is I've been kind of fine-tuning my setup. Yesterday, I literally worked from 6 in the morning until 9 this morning. So my getting a little bit of dinner, doing a little bit of work, and going to bed is actually on the menu for me, quote unquote. But I am kind of getting my whole kind of demo thing increasingly together. I did 2 magazine articles yesterday, gear reviews. I did an entire demo for this new Fender Precision bass, which is really amazing. The new American Professional. I haven't tried the other instruments in the line, but the Precision bass. There we go. One of these days I'm going to learn which finger to hold up. And then that guy right there is, I haven't done a demo for it. Actually, it is in one of the GT1000 demos that'll come out tomorrow. But that is the Esquire. And that's based on, I think, the 52 Esquire reissue. That is a great little guitar. So it was really neat to get a chance to play that. Okay, here we go. Brett, looking seriously at a used Mesa Boogie Roadster half stack locally for $1,500. Really hard to pass that amp up at that price. So here's my advice anytime you go to buy a piece of gear. And I don't know what that amp maps out at normally, manufacturer advertised price. But anytime something is grossly underpriced, I'm always a little suspicious. That said, there is I will share this with you in a way that's intended to be a blessing and not a predatory thing. Especially if you live in a larger metropolis. And all COVID considerations in mind. Generally speaking, when you see people list stuff on Craigslist and you see it languish, most of the time people are selling it for one of 2 main reasons. 1, they got to pay rent, or 2, they're looking to flip something so they can buy some other gear. Many musicians find themselves in a position where they get towards the end of the month and they're a little bit more motivated to flip a piece of gear than they were. So ideally, the time that you're going to find people most flexible pricing wise is towards the end of the month, which means that if you kind of are watching gear and seeing stuff, because I've, in my experience, a lot of stuff that, I kind of like to watch Craigslist because I like to see, I like to keep, the same reason I read the reviews on Sweetwater. I want to know what people are thinking. Same thing, I've got a bunch of Marshall amp tabs up on Reverb. I'm kind of, seeing what's happening in the Marshall amp world. I just like to be aware of what's going on around me. But the point being is by seeing what's happening on Craigslist, if there's a particular piece of gear that you're looking for, whether it's Craigslist or wherever, but it seems a little underpriced, I'm always a little suspicious. And I've been burned enough times kind of buying something that I thought I was getting too good a deal. I did. And that happened recently from somebody who actually knew a bunch of people that I knew. And he just basically with a straight face, oh, yeah, it works great. It didn't. It's basically it's like it's a Shure 56, which is the mic that St. Pope talks about a lot. And it's got a little less top end than the 57, and it has this proprietary cable on it. And he said, oh, it's just a little loose there. It didn't work. So I've got this microphone I can't use. It's a great mic, and I'm going to have to spend a little bit of money to get it to do it. He swore it worked. It didn't. It was too good a deal. But the thing is that have them turn the amplifier on an hour before you arrive. Once things start to heat up, is generally speaking, with great with great pleasure. The rev amps, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, they are pretty grunky. Although the D20 is like the best. It's kind of like a deluxe reverb because it's first of all, it's a 20-watt amp, but it's got a master volume. It's got an effects loop. It's got reactive load built into it. It's got IRs built in. I mean, it's just a crazy piece of gear. With great pleasure, Alan. With great pleasure. This is fun. I mean, I'm a strangely social person to do a little bit of a reveal. Like in my personal life, it's me and my wife. I don't need a lot of people around, but my social interactions kind of fill my social tank. So I get every bit as much as I give, and I do it because I think it's important to be outpouring. Right? I think that's a great posture to live in because it means that God's always going to kind of give you more to pour out from, and I press into that. But this is me having fun hanging out with my buds talking about gear. It's like, better than watching TV, better than just about anything. So, in any case, especially with guys that, and gals, although I don't see any gals on there visibly in the chat, that are, we're using our gifts for the Lord. So the point being is that the whole Craigslist thing, letting a piece of gear heat up before you get there, and I did this. I started doing this with a paper called the Classified Flea Market in the Bay Area, literally in my late teens, and there was an 80A multi-tap delay, and Alan Holdsworth was using one of those in his rig, and I said, well, do me a favor, I'd like you to leave it on for half an hour before I get there. And sure enough, I get there, the chips have heated up, and the thing's malfunctioning, and of course the guy was like, oh, it's never done that before, and I'm like, no, I'm sure it hasn't. See ya. And he was just basically going to offload his busted stuff to me, and I was like, nah, I'm not buying it, literally. So that's one of the things is just making sure. The other thing is that taking a look in the back and making sure that the tubes. Quite often people start flipping a tube amp when they know the tubes are getting ready to go. Is there something back there that's glowing blue? The other thing is giving the tubes, grabbing a pencil, giving the tubes a little tap there, hearing if there's any microphonic issues, and just kind of. But then there are times that people just like, I just need to pay my mortgage. I'm not using the amplifier. I'm in a church worship team. They don't let this thing on the platform anymore. It's just taking up space. And honestly, I want to bless with somebody with a good price. There are good people out there selling gear. The thing is that there are some other people out there selling gear. So I want to see you guys be blessed. Jer, what great pleasure. And I really hope I'm saying your name right. Gher. Can you do me a favor? Can you, in the chat there, say how to pronounce that? Okay, Brett, it's discontinued, but they still sell used for roughly $1,100 for the head and $6 to $7 going rate for used 412 cabinet. He really wants different gear and is downsizing. He's having a really hard time getting rid of stuff because everyone is going, away from half stacks, which is true. So, first of all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Uh, I have no problem with 412 cabinets. I am there, but just note that and this is actually a really great buying strategy is going. Where am I going to be at when I go to sell this? Right? Is this the best decision that I can make for when it's time to sell this piece of gear? If people seem to be moving away from half stacks, does that mean at the point that I actually go to get rid of it, I'm going to have a hard time to get rid of it? Or does it mean you can get a flippin' killer deal right now on a piece of gear that you want, or the appropriate piece of gear? And especially when somebody's like, I just want to get rid of it. That's a good time to buy when somebody's like, I just need the money, right? All right, everybody. There we go. Hang on a second. So Craigslist is like a pawn shop. Know what your top dollar is and what gear is worth, and be prepared to walk away. If anything seems odd, it usually is. Apologize quickly and leave. The other thing is that I will meet people at, and I've bought and sold a couple of things during this whole COVID thing. Starbucks is a safe place to do things. You can use, so long as it's not too heavily powered. I've got an AC unit that will power off of my cigarette lighter in the car. And there was a guy that tried to sell me, jerk, a Hot Rod Deluxe 2 or 3 that basically the old ones, and I think they fixed it, but basically the input jack was connected to the circuit board. So if you accidentally, kind of grab the cable, this is me kind of imitating, I'm moving my leg here. There you can see my leg. And you accidentally, kind of pull on your cable and it grabs the amp. And because of where the input jack is, it's on the top of the amplifier. So it's at a 90-degree angle, basically waiting to be broken. So it basically creates a crack, as I understand, in the circuit board. And so it basically, if you move it, it goes, it's in, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. And and he just was just trying to sell me this thing. He was like, "Oh, I'll meet you in the thing." And I'm like, "Little did you know, I'm going to show up in my minivan. I'm going to plug in my power thing. And I'm going to plug it in." I'm like, "This is broken." And oh, it wasn't like that before. I'm just like, I'm sure it must have happened on the drive over here. That's what happened. So it's just like people, just like. Well, in any case, the good news is those people are just an altar call away. That's how I like to look at it. See, that's having a good attitude. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. What a pleasure. The new issue of Worship Musician is going to drop tomorrow. And, if it weren't for the magazine, I wouldn't be doing this. But it's a pleasure. Obviously, the gear thing, I didn't see any complaints. So I think we're going to focus more on individual kind of walking away through some of the pieces of gear. There have been some great comments, and what's neat that I will take as an affirmation is so many of the pieces of gear that kind of came up in the topic are like stuff that's here. I'm like, okay, that's a great affirmation to dig deeper for my worship friends. So with that said, thank you so much, Lord. How is it that you set us apart, but yet you bring us together around music and something that we have so much passion for that brings us so much joy. It just shows how good you are and how much you want to bless us. Hang on, I got to read this. So my thing is every day I kind of start my day with a little bit of prayer and word for the day. So this is how my day started. Hang on, here we go. For you know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Lord, you have my heart. I just give thanks for all that you've done, all that you do, and the opportunity to serve you and to be able to come alongside so many amazing people from all over the world. I just give thanks for that privilege. And I just give thanks for just the joy of being able to do this together. And I just pray that We make you proud. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. I'll see you guys next week. Love you. God bless.